Ooh boy, this is a complex one, and I'm not going to be able to do it justice in 3 minutes, but here goes. It is essentially the result of a marketing stunt gone mega evil. When video games were young and were looked at as the exclusive purview of mega technology nerds, many coders were female. In fact, coding was dominated by women back in the day because the idea of calculation came from a female profession. The world's first quote-unquote computers were just people who did math equations, and those people were largely women. So when computer science was in its infancy, a lot of the game designers were women. A lot of early proof-of-concept games, a lot of text adventures, all made by women. And we didn't particularly think this was weird until the big video game crash of the 80s. The market was so saturated with 1,000,001 home consoles and family computers that it looked like the video game industry was just going to crash and burn. And then, I'm sure you know this story, Nintendo came up with the idea to market itself as a toy. To be fair, it wasn't just Nintendo. Most home consoles at the time began shifting themselves to the toy image instead of the computer image. Computers were the purview of adult women and on-the-go businessmen. Toys, on the other hand, were very heavily gendered back then. Girls played with dolls, and boys played with the cool robots. And so when video game systems became marketed as toys, they also became marketed to a primarily young male demographic. This wasn't actually because primarily young males were playing video games, it's just because the people in charge of marketing said that they should be. That's where they thought the money was. From there it became something of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Video games were marketed to boys and sold to boys, and boys were expected to play them. And even though girls still played them, they were largely overlooked in the gaming community. And that meant that they were largely overlooked in game design as they grew up and wanted to seek out careers in the industry. Heading from the 80s into the 90s, development houses became more and more like gigantic boys' clubs. The same women who were titans of coding before ended up getting forced out of their design positions. And that just became more and more extreme as years went on. Video games ended up buying into the macho testosterone image, which attracted more boys, which ended up with more male designers as time went on. This put a lot of men in positions of power, even though they built their success off of the work of women. And from there, it's kind of the same shitty story that every male-dominated workplace has. Someone does some bullshit thing that shouldn't be acceptable, and then someone else in a position of power covers up for them. And no one gets held accountable because, I mean, let's face it, in every business, we're pretty bad about this sexual harassment thing. Really, as a society, we need to up our game. But yeah, if you trace it back far enough, it's all marketing. The rampant objectification of women, the testosterone-injected advertising, the early focus on ultraviolence. Video games became a boys' club just like action movies and sports. And it was all a scheme to get parents to buy their kids toys when full-grown adults wouldn't look at entertainment systems anymore.